Beautiful late afternoon in Atlanta, and it's time for NASCAR Cup Series qualifying as they will take to the mile-and-a-half high banks here at Atlanta to find out who will start up front for tomorrow evening's race. Alongside our crew chief, Steve Letarte, Rick Allen with you, as well as our drivers, Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the pit box. We've got Kyle Petty and Brad Doherty, and roaming pit road down there by Daniel Suarez and some of the other drivers is Kim Kuhn.
Hey, Rick, down here chatting with Ryan Blaney, and the Xfinity Series drivers, they described their qualifying as the cars dancing, the cars darting. I know very different on the Cup side, but expectation for what we'll see here in qualifying.
Yeah, I think our cars, will be pretty darty and bouncing around. It's kind of like that a lot of speedways. You just run them super low and stiff and try to get the most performance out of them. And it was kind of that way in the spring here. You just have to kind of bear through it for a lap. And you can usually drive them for a lap, and in the race they get a little better. But it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see what we have speed-wise in our Worth Ford Mustang. Really strong here in the spring. I think all three of our cars qualified top three, so curious to see. Hopefully we still have that speed. A little bit hotter, a lot hotter, I should say, than the springtime. But yeah, we'll find out and see what we got for them on Sunday. But it's great to have Worth back with us. I'm excited to get racing under the lights tomorrow. It's going to be fun.
You've won at Atlanta, but before the reconfiguration, but have two top tens here since the change. Do you feel like you've acclimated to this style racing at this track?
I'd like to think so. I feel like, the three races we've had here before, we've kind of been around. We've been in contention, led some laps. It's just a matter of, the speedway race in a mile and a half is just so crazy. Things happen quick, and it's a lot of establishing yourself fairly early in the race and having a good day, on pit road and track position-wise to keep up there coming down to the end of the race, because it's just narrow here and it's hard to move forward. We moved forward after our speeding penalty in the spring, but a lot of things kind of had to go our way. So you really have to minimize mistakes here. But yeah, I feel pretty good about it. All our speedway stuff's been really strong the last couple of years too. So it's just a matter of trying to make the right moves at the right time and keeping yourself in the game and obviously staying out of trouble. But it would be nice to get to victory lane on the new pavement. Completely different racetrack than when we won here a few years ago. So we're going to try to do that.
Ryan mentioned Ford's dominance in qualifying this spring. Ford swept the top 8 starting positions when the Cup Series was here in March.
We'll see if they have that same dominance as we get ready for the first cars to roll. And the rules for today's qualifying session: there aren't groups. It'll be single car qualifying, and it will be 2 rounds. So you have the first round where everybody will go out and put down the best lap. The fastest 10 cars will advance to that final round, and they will have a shot at the pole.
Yeah, and Austin Hill, he was here on track just an hour or so ago in Xfinity Series qualifying at a track that he's had a lot of success at, a couple wins in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, this will be his second Cup Series start. His Xfinity Series success has been unmatched on this racetrack. A couple times he has already been able to visit victory lane in his home state. This one was a little wilder earlier this year. But Austin Hill, very established. Now, Steve, he's going to have his work cut out for him because they had a transmission issue in qualifying on the Xfinity side, so they're going to have to start in the back of the field. And they had the 2 fastest cars in qualifying.
The 2 RCR cars were crazy fast. Both had to change transmissions, so they'll have to come from the back. We'll see if that speed carries over to his Cup car. I'd love to tell you what we expect to have, but qualifying at these tracks seem to be so difficult to predict. We'll just have to see as the, qualifying continues.
One thing also, guys, in the spring, in Cup qualifying, it was wild. Like you heard Ryan Blaney talking about how the cars bounce around and move around a lot. You can deal with it for a lap. There were some that couldn't. There were some cars that wrecked. There were some cars that guys did incredible jobs of saving. It was an eventful qualifying session. It'll be interesting to see how much they learned, what they could apply to that, because it was not an easy just run wide open kind of lap in the spring.
This is Ty Dillon behind the wheel of the Rays Energy Blue Shock Chevrolet. Moved over to Spire Motorsports. Ty Dillon and brother Austin, they spent a lot of time here in Atlanta growing up, racing legend cars here on the quarter mile, just on the front stretch. It's like the car chased up there a little bit.
Yeah, it does. 3 and 4, it seems like the white and red line around the bottom doesn't really quite match the arc that the cars itself want to take. They kind of come close to it and away from it. You see a big speed difference between the 6 and 2.
Real bad.
Loose in 3 and 4. So to Jeff's point, they're talking about handling characteristics out there by themselves.
Yeah, that's just something, Junior, that you go to Daytona and Talladega to qualify. You don't ever hear drivers talking about being loose. You'll hear them talk about it hits the track hard or something, but the radius of this racetrack, the corners, is so much tighter than those types of racetracks. It makes handling that much more difficult.
And that's what makes it different from Talladega and Daytona. Everybody wants to know, well, it's the same, right? It's pack racing. It's what we used to call restrictor plate racing, but the radius of the corners and the way this track's shaped is going to challenge the balance of the cars, and the track's always changing, always losing grip. Every time they come here, there's going to be a little less grip. Look at that big moment there for B.J. McLeod.
Waiting free. No rear lateral.
They really have no idea where the grip's going to be till you land and compress the car into the corner, and you have to hold it wide open to that moment, right? And then there's this sort of big surprise, and he's nervous. He's not holding it wide open anymore, not after the way that thing went through turn 1 and 2. And so
no rear lateral grip at all.
He actually crashed here. He spun in qualifying in the spring, so he probably is really nervous.
Yeah, but you're gonna get down in the corner and load the car really hard, and you got what you got. When that moment happens, you better be ready for whatever happens, whether the rear steps out. And a lot of times you'll anticipate a problem that doesn't happen and lose time, right? You'll crack the throttle more than you should. The car doesn't get loose when you predicted it would, and you drive up the racetrack a little bit, lengthening the lap, and it's just hard to know without any practicing time on the racetrack how much to trust the car.
Interesting. We've already seen Austin Hill, who ran in the Xfinity Series in Chicago a week ago, but there's double duty where drivers are running in the Xfinity Series and in the Cup Series race this weekend. They weren't allowed to do that at Chicago because it was a new track. So now we have Cole Custer, who was victorious at Chicago a week ago in the Xfinity Series, and he's running in the Cup Series today.
It's good to see Cole back in the Cup Series, making his first start of 2023. Remember, full-time for a few years, moved back to Xfinity, so good to see him get this opportunity in Rick Ware Racing.
About 0.2 of a second faster than what we saw out of Ty Dillon. So Cole Custer, of the 4 that have been on the track, he is the fastest. We flash back to 1 week ago, Xfinity Series, the first cars racing on a street course for NASCAR, and it ended up being Cole Custer out front when the caution came out for a weather issue. Lightning struck on Saturday. They tried to restart the race on Sunday, but with so much rain, as a matter of fact, a record-setting amount of rain for Chicago, the race was called, and Cole Custer was the winner of the street course race for the Xfinity Series at Chicago.
We get to talk to him. Me and Jeff get to talk to him at the pre-race before the Xfinity race tonight, and I can't wait to ask him how he feels about his career. You know, back in the Xfinity Series, winning races. So we watched J.J. Yaley start his lap around turns 1 and 2.
Yaley's in the Patriot Mobile Ford for Rick Ware Racing. And the 46-year-old is going to be second quickest. Kim?
And Tyler Reddick down here chatting with me about what it takes to qualify well here. You need the speed, but when it comes to Atlanta, we talk about it having to handle well. So what's the threshold of maneuverability, handling with that speed you need?
Well, I mean, certainly it does race like a super speedway event, but, you know, it does kind of remind me here in qualifying a little bit, you know, of what the 550 package used to be. You know, you'd see some cars qualify really good, but they wouldn't have the handling there. So, you know, I think a combination of both is kind of what you need to have. Certainly, you know, we qualified middle of the pack, and we had a really good handling car here in the spring. And I definitely think we have some more speed than that in our cars. So we should be able to hopefully qualify a little better than that. And I think we'll still have some good handling. But I just think as we run here in the hot summer months, handling becomes even more important. And it's just an unknown how much the track's going to change and how much it's going to wear out. I think the more this place does wear out, the more it'll look more like a normal race. But for now, it's still speedway racing, and it's still very intense.
Big lap here for Harrison Burton. Dex imaging on the hood once again. Dex has been a part of Harrison's racing career for quite some time. But a 31-34 for Burton, and maybe we're seeing that same trend that we saw earlier with the Fords. I mean, Kim mentioned it earlier, that had the top 8 starting positions earlier this year, and right now the 3 fastest times have been turned in by Fords.
Well, and the fastest Ford in the spring was Joey Logano, and that was at a 31:25. So to give you an idea, that's less than a 1/10 of a second quicker than what Harrison Burton just ran.
And only 6 cars have gone already. Again, a primetime race for the Cup Series tomorrow evening here in Atlanta. As we see another Ford on track in Chase Briscoe. We're going to continue to compare to Harrison Burton, or the top lap so far.
See that big bump off turn 2? Think about this track being pretty smooth, but you can see that car hop.
Yeah, we drove around it today, and it was smooth, but it's starting to get some imperfections. You see some patches on the racetrack, and some sealer had been added in some of the areas between the seams.
Chase Briscoe, currently the fastest. This racetrack, the legends and bandoleros, kids growing up. Saw Joey Logano, William Byron really cutting their teeth. Chris Buescher, another one right here at Atlanta. Mentioned earlier the Dillon brothers, both Austin and Ty, have spent some time on the quarter mile here. Bubba Wallace also learning his trade. And of course, Georgia native Chase Elliott. Spent a lot of time on the quarter mile here. Here's Austin. You see him trending in the red right now, a 1/10 of a second slower than what we've seen out of Chase Briscoe.
You see the time just continues to run off. It's going to be a big gap out of the gas. Look at him completely out of the gas.
Man, that thing
And
looks
up
loose.
the track.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that's, you know, all by yourself out here. It's just.
Well, I feel for you. I hear him.
You're just guessing. You know, the teams are guessing how much grip the track has. And
Unbelievable, man.
so you're making these compromises. You're saying, hey, if we want to go fast, we're going to have to get this car aerodynamically in a position that gets it out of the air the best it can. Well, that takes downforce off the car, and that makes the car not drive well. And the team clearly thought the track would have more grip than it does, and he was out of the gas a mile. You could hear his frustration. You would hope that going around a racetrack like this would be kind of non-eventful, but he had his hands full.
Well, instantly you start thinking, okay, in this format with, you know, the cars impounded after qualifying, what all can you change? The list is long, but can you change enough as we see Noah struggle?
That was a big one. You know, those moments look kind of small from our vantage point watching the car go around the track, but inside the cockpit, the movement in the steering wheel and how that makes the driver feel, Noah feels like he just saved his car from crashing. That was a big moment inside the car, and crazy that they can gather it up and even put a lap down, finish the lap. Wrecking, yeah. I believe it.
But you know, when you're out there by yourself, you really do. I mean, you feel like you're on an island, and when things go bad, you just want to communicate as quickly as you can. And all these drivers like Joey Logano, they're seeing this. I mean, they're seeing that drivers are having issues. Now for Joey, he's got, you know, they got an alliance with the 21 car, so they've got, you know, it feels like, hey, that car went around there pretty good, we should be okay. But
But I was listening to y'all during the Xfinity qualifying, and I'm with Letarte. You don't want to tell your driver any bad news. You don't want to tell him anything that's going to make him nervous. So hopefully you're not, your driver's not paying too much attention. Telling your teammates said it was comfortable. Teammate, oh my God,
not comfortable.
Oh my
not
gosh.
Comfortable.
I was getting ready to say, this is a car, we expect to see in the front. I mean, this car, Hendrick always qualifies in the front, but he is off a mile with a big save, a big lift.
Yeah, that was huge.
Well, now at this point, you might as well be out of the gas, right? There's no reason to wreck it, in 3 and 4.
Yeah, you see the car wagging back and forth. He's just checking the steering wheel, trying to save anything that, any big slip that's coming. He's just trying to be ready for it.
So what one would have thought that you could handle around this mile and a half pretty much wide open. It's been all but that to the number 20 for his qualifying effort as Bubba Wallace on track. You see a couple other guys smiling, but I'm guessing it's a hesitant smile as they're both looking up, and an issue there with Bubba Wallace.
I'm at 10 o'clock and it's something, I don't know, something's off. Terrible.
He's talking about his steering wheel. So his steering wheel is now off-centered. Something in front of the car has come apart or shifted.
Describe, but like,
he left pit road, got up to speed, went all the way down the back straightaway, drove into turn 3, and immediately slowed down.
Yeah, it could be something in the back of the car too, tracking and he's correcting for that.
See the car just moving around a great deal.
Well, this has been some interesting qualifying.
Yeah. Anything but normal.
And fourth driver in a row.
It's frustrating, just like for the Xfinity series with.
I went into 3 and it started to like load up and getting ready to spin, so I just failed.
So it's just super loose.
And here comes Tyler Reddick. He's wanting to know something wrong with that thing.
Yeah.
I got to drive one too.
Yeah.
This is compelling, but it speaks to not having any practice. Xfinity series with the RCR cars having the issues, they're gonna have to go to the back. They would have discovered those problems having gotten some laps earlier today. Same for these guys. Just they would certainly love to just get a little bit of track time.
Interesting thing about this is how does NASCAR view that? He never took the green, but he didn't have a mechanical issue. Like what?
Oh, he has the same 5 minutes, right, to get back to the front of the line.
Well, he was on track.
It's actually before the next car goes, so he has one car option to get up there and get going again. So if he does make it up there.
Stenhouse and his team, they're just glad to see this thing go around the racetrack after what they've been watching. But even that car is up the racetrack off of 4.
Stenhouse, 6th quickest of the 11 that have gone. Kim.
Well, Corey LaJoie is going to give you guys a run for your money in the booth because he's been down here with me kind of narrating everything he's seeing from the drivers who have made their lap. So what's jumped out at you, and how will what you've seen direct your qualifying lap?
Yeah, I think you can just see a lot of teams getting aggressive on the bump stops. And depending on how, it doesn't take much, a half round, 3/4 round to get on the bump stops and make them drivable. So we've seen the 48 have a moment, so the 3 have a moment. So I feel pretty good about the 77 in the lap he laid down on just the overall drivability. But big weekend for our Spire Motorsports team with Gamebridge. Their first foray in NASCAR, so I'm honored to be the one that gives those guys the maiden boards this weekend, and hopefully we can put that Camaro up front like we do normally here at Atlanta.
Also a big weekend for Corey LaJoie. They circled this race on their calendar. He has finished top 5 in 2 of the 3 since the reconfiguration.
Yeah, Corey LaJoie has really impressed. I think when we've seen what he has continued to do and improve, as now we have Ryan Blaney, who we heard from just a little while ago. He's behind the wheel of a Ford, so let's find out if he can continue the Ford dominance, which he does, 31.29. So he's 2/1000ths of a second faster than Briscoe right now, and the fastest car in qualifying up to this point. You see Bubba's out of his car.
So interesting, you know, he's not going to get an opportunity to qualify. But after qualifying, there's this pit road entry practice because of the rules that are here. You know, are they going to use that half a lap or lap what you're going to get for pit road entry practice to diagnose something anymore? Are they going to take the car to the garage here? It's going to be very interesting because from what we heard over the radio, now we don't have all the information. You know, he said it went down into turn 3 and it loaded up and it got loose, and I couldn't tell if it was just a handling or a mechanical issue.
Here comes Todd Gilliland. And again, we're comparing to 10th now because the top 10 will have one more round to determine the pole all the way down to the 10th starting position. Gilliland also not able to hold it right there on that double white line. But a good lap here, a second faster than what Dillon had posted. That's 4th quickest. So the top 6 speeds right now and times have all been Fords. Of the 13, actually 14 will count Bubba Wallace, but of the 14 cars that had started their qualifying effort. Booty Barker talking with Bubba. Here comes Daniel Suarez in Quaker State, number 99. Suarez dancing a little bit through 1 and 2 with his Chevrolet. We'll see how he does through 3 and 4 here. A little better at holding the white line. Seventh quickest for Suarez. Final time for Kevin Harvick to race in Atlanta, as he'll be retiring after this season. But you think about the way his Cup career started after the tragedy with Dale Earnhardt. He took over, got in this 29, and in just his 3rd Cup Series start, he outdueled the 24 of Jeff Gordon and got his first Cup Series win. And the fans, the crew, and even Kevin Harvick giving a salute to Dale Earnhardt, holding 3 fingers up in the air. But now Kevin Harvick comes back for the final time to Atlanta in his Cup Series career.
Think about how far Kevin Harvick has come since that race and what he's meant to this series. Retiring at the end of this year, he's become a real leader, a winner, a champion, a great race car driver, and doing a lot also to give back to the sport.
It was announced earlier this week that Richard Childress will be behind the 29 and will be leading the field on the pace laps tomorrow night, honoring Richard, honoring Kevin. And Harvick's time in the 4th quickest. Kim.
And Bubba Wallace with that issue could not make a qualifying lap. You've had time to check in with your team. What was the car giving you in terms of feedback, and what did you ultimately figure out happened?
Just really loose. A feeling I've never had before, so I brought it in so we didn't tear up a good Leidos Toyota Camry. Found out what the issue was. Frustrating, but we'll fix it and go and get them north.
You don't want to share what the issue was?
It's our secrets.
That is Bubba Wallace, obviously very frustrated down here.
Guess I'll hang my hat. I would hang my hat on the good news if they found out the issue.
Yeah, Steve, the rule on that is essentially unless he had some kind of tire problem, when you go out and try to attempt to make a lap and you don't make it, then you're just done. You know what I mean? And NASCAR, if you had a flat tire or something like that, might work with you, but just to go out and have a bad handling car or a mechanical issue or something, then you've made your attempt and you're done. You do not get another try.
Yeah, so even if it was a mechanical you're saying, you know, that would be on you as a team, so you got your one shot.
Correct.
Well, listen, I watched 3 cars almost wreck, and Bubba Wallace, when I think about restricted play racing, knows what he's looking for, and if the car was that poorly handling, it actually takes more confidence, I think, to pull it in and quit than it is to drive through it. I think everyone expects you to drive through it, so a tip of the hat to Bubba, right? If he goes on to win this race tomorrow night, we look back and say, hey, you know, just throwing his hands up and qualifying was the right move.
Yeah, pretty smart to save a car like that, as we see A.J. Allmendinger. Eric Jones, by the way, was 8th quickest on his lap.
And a couple more cars, we get to find out his teammate, Tyler Reddick, whether his car has any similar issues, right? Did they fix a balance problem? Did they fix, you know, a true problem issue with a car that won't be on the 45 car? That's what I'm interested to see in a couple more cars here.
And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but guys, his demeanor made it seem like it was something either overlooked.
An error.
Or an error.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Like an error was made that, which he didn't want to roll someone under the bus. You know, maybe it was a crew member, maybe it was him, maybe it was crew chief, doesn't matter. He doesn't want to air the laundry on public TV, which I can appreciate.
Allmendinger 6th quickest. He has now separated the Ford dominance. 5 Fords up top, and then Allmendinger 6th. 7th and 8th are both Fords.
You have to wonder also, Steve, is, you know, once you get on pit road, really the only thing you can do is adjust air pressure. But you have to wonder, you know, crew chiefs, drivers, watching the chaos from earlier, if they haven't done some air pressure stuff to try to just get their car in the racetrack. Don't worry so much about just how fast it can go. Try to do some air pressure to try to do something that just lets my driver stay wide open in the gas.
Well, yeah, because others who have faltered, if you just have an okay lap, you're going to out-qualify a big chunk of cars that have had major issues.
RFK and Brad Keselowski now on the clock, and you see him trending in the green. A 1/10 of a second faster than Suarez, who's 10th. Now 2/10 of a second. Good lap here for Brad. And Keselowski moves up to that 6th spot, bumping Allmendinger down a position. Qualifying has been eventful. Will Tyler Reddick be nervous when he goes out after he saw what Bubba Wallace just experienced? Tyler Reddick coming up to speed now as he goes into turn 3, and he'll be coming around to take the green flag on his qualifying run. He's gotten farther than his teammate did in Bubba Wallace, so now he's on the clock and immediately into the green. So coming to the green, a good run. Junior, does this surprise you?
Well, I mean, I'm just glad he's able to get around the corner. His teammate had a little trouble trying to get to the green flag, and you have to wonder about the balance on this car and whether it would be affected. But apparently there was a pretty serious issue on Bubba's car, not affecting this car here.
Pretty good lap there. 7th quickest for Reddick. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he started the season off in victory lane, winning the Daytona 500. And what that does, it affords you so many opportunities to experience some great things throughout the season. But when the wreck happened behind him, he was a nose in front of the 22 of Logano and the 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins the 2023 Daytona 500. He now is joining our guys, Kyle Petty and Brad Doherty, on the Peacock Pit Box. And I said it affords you some fun opportunities. I think he even was able to hit a golf ball here at Atlanta a little earlier this year.
Absolutely. So we're here in lovely Atlanta. We just saw Ricky go out and try to qualify, and we were asking about it. He said it's a little bit sketchy, just the hair. Give us your feedback.
I was not ready for that. You know, Bowman was, 2 cars in front of me.
Yeah.
And I heard my crew guys go, "Oh no!" And so I thought he spun out, and he's like, "Man, he had a big wiggle." And obviously, I saw his lap times. I was like, "All right, Chevy seemed to be a little lower right now," and I don't know if that's just a product of how we got it set up for qualifying. I know us and our group at JTG Doherty Racing, we're looking for speed in qualifying on super speedways. And I've always qualified wide open, felt comfortable, just not fast. And, you know, now I'm like, I lifted a lot and ran almost the same lap times I ran last time here wide open. So I think we found that line of, you know, going too far on trimmed out versus, you know, having some handling. I don't think it's going to affect the way we're going to race. I feel like our guys will still get our Slim Jim Camaro tuned up for that. But we were just hoping to qualify a little bit better. But it seems like all the Chevys are definitely sliding around today.
And all the Fords are where they were last time we were here, too.
Exactly.
They're right up there. But I want to ask, from as a driver, when you hear your crew chief, or you hear your crew go, oh, oh, and then Bubba bails, he's the car out in front of you.
There you
so
go, Rick.
There's 2 or 3 cars, they're sideways, and it's like, okay, Ricky, let's go get him, boy.
Yeah.
What is that like for a driver? What's that like in your head? Because you've got to prepare for that.
Yeah, mentally, I knew what to expect as far as if there was going to be an issue, I knew it was going to be loose, right? So for me, it was feeling it, you know, coming up to speed. I felt a little loose, felt the rear end, kind of sliding around, coming up to speed, running the top of the racetrack through 3 and 4. So I knew when I got to 1 and 2, it was going to be loose. And at that moment, I was like, all right, I'm going to hold it wide open down here. But I couldn't turn the wheel, so like I used up a lot of racetrack, and that cost us some time. I went ahead and lifted in 3 and 4 just to make sure we made it back to the line.
Okay, so this is pretty cool for me because we sat here and watch you qualify, and then I get to sit in between a car owner and his driver, and you explain what it's like and why we qualified. Like, what is it like to have to come up here and talk to your car owner instantly when it's over with?
Now, it's for me, I love having Brad at the racetrack. Obviously, the first half of the year, we don't have him there, you know, near as much. But, you know, one of the cool things is Brad understands sports. He understands the ups and downs. He understands what it's like when you go to racetracks that you struggle at, or, you know, different teams that you play against, and you struggle against some of those guys. So, you know, having Brad as an owner, you know, part of our ownership group is really special, really fun. Glad to have him back at the racetrack.
Hey, you know what? The biggest thing is, I get to slip this on.
Yes.
Daytona 500 champion, baby.
That looks good.
Yes,
That looks good.
Brother.
So I'm going to ask you this. The car's going by. We talked about it, you know, in perfect storm. It's 90 degrees. It's slick. You don't know what to expect. We're going to watch an Xfinity race tonight, and this should be exciting. Under the lights, prime time, get her done, baby. That's what's going to happen tonight. What do you expect tomorrow on this same track from the Cup cars?
Excitement as well. Anytime you throw our cars underneath the lights, I feel like, you know, the intensity level ramps up a little bit. You know, watching Daytona finishing, you know, at night, seeing sparks, you know, when we bottom out, and all those factors come in. For us, you know, I wish it was during the day, because I do think that, you know, races like Atlanta, you know, I think back to the first race that we had on this configuration, nobody knew what to expect as far as what downforce setup you should come with, how much grip you needed in your car. And a lot of us had to play with the throttle, you know, a lot to get around this racetrack. And I felt like that put on a good race. As we've gone down, you know, it's gotten harder and harder to pass. You run, you know, 2 wide, single file. I'm hoping the hotter temperatures, another year on this asphalt, a hot summer so far. I'm hoping that creates a little bit more passing, a little bit more off-throttle time. Yeah, but we'll watch these Xfinity guys. They're always exciting, and see if we can't learn something.
All right, Rick, man, go get them tomorrow. We'll let that qualifying go, because we're wearing this. That ain't no big deal. Go out there and get that checkered flag, but have a good run tomorrow. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Let me say, it's so much more enjoyable to work with Brad when you're running up front.
That's right. Hey,
go get it done, man.
My wife would say the same thing with me.
Rick.
Well, I'm glad that Ricky was able to join us there, and so much fun and great insight as we see Ross Chastain is experiencing a lot of what all the other Chevys have been experiencing. By the way, Eric Almirola, he was 4th quickest on his run. Again, they're trying to get into the top 10 to have a shot at the pole. I don't know if Ross Chastain is trying to get in the top 10 or if he's just trying to hang on to this thing.
He's out of gas right there, big time, chasing it up the racetrack. You could see the car looked like it was bottoming out a little bit, Steve. A little bit of dust coming out of the car, getting down into turn 1.
Yeah, dragging that splitter strakes, the vertical parts of the diffuser in the back. And to your point, Junior, whatever the Chevrolets are doing, Their communication is spot on because
they're all doing it.
They are all doing it. They are 11th to 24th, basically stacked in right there.
Kim.
And because we've seen so many drivers lift during their qualifying laps, I asked Larson what his plan was, and he said, I'm not going to lift as long as my car lets me. So how much of this qualifying lap at this racetrack is driver control, and how much of it is the car?
Well, I would say right now it's all car. So, yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm not going to go out there and get the pole. I already know that. I'm just trying to make a lap where I don't crash. So hopefully they get some grip in the car, and we'll just take what we can get and go race tomorrow.
That is Kyle Larson. We'll see what he's able to do with his Chevrolet.
What a change in philosophy. I mean, you've got all these guys in the Fords are thinking, man, this is going to be great. We just heard from Kyle Larson, a champion of this sport, that said, I'm just hoping not to wreck.
Whoa, Christopher
and we
Bell.
might see it here out of C. Bell.
Oh, he got so loose, and he tried to drive the car, corrected it down onto the apron. Did a great job of saving it.
So the interesting part here is we'll see what NASCAR says, but in the Xfinity Series, we had a car wreck and go below the double yellow line, below the apron, and they threw the qualifying timeout because technically it's out of bounds. Now, it's nowhere you want to be, but that's how they enforce it in the Xfinity Series. Let's take a look at it, guys.
Yeah, watch what happens. See the back of the car steps out right there, and down on the apron it went. And it just shows you, it is a fine line between getting a car to go fast and getting a car to drive around here comfortably. It just turns around on him. Look at that. You saw he had to lift to save the race car. Just not something you expect as a race car driver going around and run a drafting type racetrack where you have to drive it this hard.
I don't know, Rick, but Kyle Larson's strategy is looking better and better. The more cars I see run.
Hey, remember Christopher Bell? He made the top 10 here in the spring, and he spun on his second lap. So that team got that thing sitting on edge. And Steve, I guess the question I've got for you is, like, obviously the teams feel like they can qualify with a setup that's super aggressive and then get enough of it out, even though it's an impound race and NASCAR allows you to do certain things. There's enough that they can do under NASCAR rules to get the cars to drive better tomorrow night.
Oh, there's a tremendous amount. I mean, the height of these cars can change the overall grip level dramatically. Mostly in the front. The rear, you kind of get as low as you can. It makes the most downforce with the diffuser near the ground. But the front height up and down can change the aero balance. You could adjust shocks, sway bar, the rate of the sway bar using the arms. I mean, the list of adjustments, shocks can be adjusted, rounds of actual wedge can be adjusted. I mean, this is a very, very adjustable car. I actually think they have way more adjustment than the old car. I don't think the teams understood that in year one, but the more they have worked with it, they definitely have learned everything that's available to add the grip to the car.
Riding on board here with Ty Gibbs. Watch his hands when he goes down to the corner into turn one. The car loads up. Going to get in there shallow. Not arcing out for corner entry. That just adds feet to the lap, but it also challenges the balance of the car. Looks really comfortable.
Yeah, it's a good lap right here. Yeah, the last thing you want to do with a car that's handling poorly is enter really low. Then you got to turn the wheel more right here. That asks a lot out of the car, but Ty is able to make it work.
A fearless young driver. And it looked like a pretty good handling car there for Gibbs as Ty Gibbs goes to P4. A great run for Ty Gibbs and the fastest Toyota we have seen today. We talked about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and being afforded a few 10 will be able to determine who wins the pole and those 10 starting positions. Now out on the track, the two of Austin Cindric. He's got a best finish here at Atlanta of third a year ago.
Austin seems to always be around at the end of these drafting type racetracks. Does a great job of dealing with all the issues that you have to deal with during the race and find himself with a chance to win. Obviously won the Daytona 500 last year, but consistently is in position to win them.
That one looked good through 1 and 2. Still trending in the green, up the racetrack there on entry about 2-3 feet. But still stays in the green for that lap, and he's 8th quickest. Bumping Reddick down to the bubble now. Here comes Joey Logano, and the emotions that we saw out of Joey after the race here in March. Racing against his old teammate Brad Keselowski. Got a little help there from the 20 of Seabell. Might have needed to see a chiropractor after that hit.
And that whole group right there, I think they're all going to have good days Sunday. Joey's one of the best drivers at these super speedways where drafting is so key. Brad Keselowski as well. We saw Corey LaJoie in that shot. I think everybody's going to expect the same amount of drivers, same list of drivers to be up toward the front. And the Fords having a good qualifying effort here so far today, and they need a boost. And they've been a little bit off this year in terms of wins and so forth, and just overall performance, but it's just a tiny bit. It's like they just need that one thing to really push them all over the edge. And come in here, qualify well, have a great race, could be the momentum they need to carry through the rest of the year.
Really good lap there for Logano. He's 3rd quickest now of the 29 that have taken time and the 30 that have been on track. So the only one that has broken up that Ford party has been Ty Gibbs. He's currently 5th fastest. The rest of the top 10 all Fords.
And that's truly amazing. I mean, you think about multiple organizations, no practice. It's all about the approach coming here. To see that consistent of a performance from a manufacturer, very impressive.
It's just so interesting. So interesting, right? How they struggled, and they're all come here and they're so fast. Tell you who didn't struggle last week is Justin Haley. Justin Haley did a great job fending off, battling for that win. Ended up running 2nd. Just a fierce battle last week.
I love the crossover move that you called, Junior, down there in turns 3 and 4 that he tried against SVG.
Well, he started it and SVG finished it, but the fact that he actually came back on his inside there down the back straightaway into turn 3, I was really impressed, because he had to have known it was going to be hard to beat that 91 car, but he tried. He really did. He had momentum and give it a shot. And I like this little guy, man. I think he's a heck of a driver. And with a new team that's getting better every week, and he's part of the reason why they're getting better, is his tenacity and effort.
I saw him this morning, and I said, man, he did a great job. He said, I didn't realize how good that guy was after he won. I went and looked up everything he had done. That guy's won everything.
Yeah.
Kim.
Well, Ty Gibbs, the only manufacturer in that Toyota breaking up the Ford brigade. I asked him how he thought his lap went. He said good because I didn't wreck it. But you did say there was some nitpicky stuff you would do differently if you get a chance in the 2nd round. What would those kind of things be?
Yeah, just maybe stay a little higher off of turn 4. That's about the only thing I could really say. I mean, we're kind of at the limit of the cars here. Right? It's kind of a speedway, so I feel like we got a fast he gets to Monster Energy Camry TRD. We just got to see if we can make it next round. And besides that, I feel like we had a great race last year, and we didn't qualify that good, so it's part of it.
Well, I agree that really the car's doing most of the performance right now, but the driver does have things that he can do to make that lap time better, and he mentioned one of them, staying higher off of turn 4 to get the momentum to the green. And if you look at how tight it is at one for 1st and 2nd there, 29.3 to a 29.5. You've mentioned it, Rick, just being up the racetrack a couple feet in the corner adds distance to the lap itself. That could be the difference between getting the pole and being 2nd or 3rd.
There's Brad Keselowski chatting with crew chief. Right now, he's currently in 10th. So what's Matt McCall telling him? I can get you a little more? Is he going to say, hey, what else can I give the driver?
What he would be telling him as well, there's a bunch of Hendrick cars to go, and at super speedways they normally qualify very well, but they're in Chevrolets, and those haven't qualified well today. So we'll see how it'll math out. And you see Byron right on the bubble at the moment for that 10th spot.
Trying to push Keselowski out of the top 10. but now 3/100ths of a second behind 5/100ths, and it's going the wrong direction as he drifts up the racetrack also.
Junior, I mentioned in Xfinity Series what you told me about that banking change from the white line to the red line. Like the 24 right there, do you think that's some of that what we're seeing is the left front with those big, wide, white, red, white line? You can't really see the transition from the banking to the apron as well?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that if there's any grip in the paint, that white line is up on the apron in the corner where the red is down on the transition. So you wouldn't want to hit the red with the left front. That would get you upset. But he does see right there, that red is the apron. He's in the apron right there, and that can certainly make the car uncomfortable. But since they basically split the line onto the apron and the racetrack, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to see for the drivers. I would have liked it all to be on the banking or all to be on the apron, but having it split like that presents an opportunity for the drivers to bounce that left front tire into the apron and upset the car.
We'll see how much teammates share information as Ty Gibbs currently sitting 5th in this qualifying session. We'll see how Denny Hamlin does.
This end of the racetrack seems like where Blaney was really good, especially into 3. Seems like a lot of drivers lose a little bit of time, just the entrance into the middle of 3 and 4.
Looks like Keselowski's going to dodge another bullet there as Hamlin is 13th quickest. So Keselowski still in the top 10 and only 3 cars to go.
Talking to some drivers, if you have a loose balance, the entry to 3 seems to be where it'll be the worst. So if you go down into turn 1, Jeff, and you have a little sensation of being free, you're immediately more curious and nervous about how that's going to be in turn 3 because it should be more pronounced. So you'll see some guys maybe not challenge turn 3 because of what they felt in turn 1 and 2. That transition into 3 just so much more difficult.
A year ago, the crowd maybe screaming as loud as they possibly could scream when the 9 of Chase Elliott took the lead here at Atlanta. Out front and then finished the deal. That hard charge by Corey LaJoie wouldn't get there. But Chase Elliott winning in his home state. And of course, the Dawson fans there, Dawsonville, Georgia, all excited at the pool room. Let's see what Chase Elliott can do now. He's a little over 0.2 of a second slower and edgy.
And I think at that point, as a team, you've committed. We picked on what Kyle Larson said, but at some point you have to just accept what you have. Veteran crew chief Alan Gustafson and Chase, guys, I could hear him, Dale. They could have this conversation like, look, this is where we are. I wish I could change it. I can't. This is where we're sitting. Don't go out there and try to do something that can't be done. It might be a little edgy if you have to breathe it a little bit to make sure you bring it back. I mean, there's no reason to just hope it goes faster. I mean, at some point you have to accept where you're sitting on setup.
Yeah, there's only one car in the top 10 that's not a Ford. So clearly they have an advantage in qualifying. And like you said, Steve, you can act like that's not real and or not. And you have to be realistic and understand what your situation is and not try to overreach and get yourself in trouble.
Well, Larson behind the wheel, and we heard him earlier say, I just don't want to wreck.
Trending in the right direction, though, to be the only Chevy to jump into the top 10. Let's see what he can do down here in turn 3 and 4.
See, right there, whatever has happened on entry into the middle of 3 and 4, that's where Blaney seemed to have some good speed.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, it did.
Brad. The reaction to Brad, he's like, darn. Just so close.
So that bumps Keselowski out. Only one more car to go, which puts Cindric now on the hot seat.
And Larson, you have guaranteed you're going to give him another shot at this.
He might not have wanted one. He might have been like, rather qualify 11th and just call it a day.
Man, you and I can relate to what you're saying.
No. You work with enough drivers, Rick. Those two right there could have been a little breathe right there in the front stretch out of those two. But like, ow, 12th, shucks. I think I'd have been okay with it too, actually, after what I've seen today.
Yeah.
Just make sure you bring the car back to me. As Kyle Busch now the final to take time here at Atlanta.
And remember Kyle Busch, with his teammate Austin Dillon, he was all but wrecked. He was so loose. He's all the way down in 30 seconds, so I'm sure they made some air pressure adjustments to this car. Told Kyle to hang on.
Way up the racetrack he goes. 0.2 of a second slower than Austin Cindric, so that will guarantee Cindric into the final round of qualifying. Or into the races with NASCAR Fantasy Live. To compete, all you have to do is create an entry by picking 5 drivers, and then you add a garage driver. You can keep tabs on your lineup, even make in-race adjustments to maximize your score. Visit NASCAR.com/fantasy to play. So all drivers were able to get out on track and collect a time, with the exception of the 23 of Bubba Wallace. He didn't actually get to the clock. Ill-handling car brought him back onto pit road. We see the 10 drivers who advance to the final round. Ryan Blaney with the fastest lap. Can they back it up? And once again, there will be 8 Fords in the top 10 as far as starting positions. A pretty dominant performance again.
I'll take the Fords, Rick. You can have the other manufacturers. I'm only taking one of the 3 manufacturers. That seems fair.
He's an aggressive gambler.
Sure enough.
No, it's impressive. So in the spring, top 8 were Fords. Much was made about it. That was a long time ago, all the way back in March. To think, Jeff, that you could keep whatever advantage this is, whatever setup, whatever concept, whatever drives this speed in the Fords, that's impressive, because you know Chevy and Toyota heard about it.
Yeah.
You know, they heard about it from the manufacturers, from the teams, from everyone. So to keep that advantage to come back the second time, it's rare you see that.
Those 10 cooling things off as they will be back out on track for the final round of qualifying to determine who will lead the field to the green flag tomorrow evening here at Atlanta.
For the poll here for the final 10 drivers. Still plenty to come here on USA, guys. Xfinity Series racing tonight, and then a little post-race show. We will talk about what promises to be chaos from Atlanta Motor Speedway.
No doubt.
On a hot Saturday night in Atlanta, Georgia. And then tomorrow, Cup Series. Can Chase Elliott, the hometown kid, win back-to-back races in Atlanta and put himself in the playoffs? Countdown to Green starts 6:30 on USA Racing at 7 o'clock. And then, of course, 30 minutes of post-race show guaranteed, as we will have all year long. And that'll be on USA tomorrow. Marty Snyder, Kyle Petty, Brad Daugherty joining you here. So, Kyle, are there maybe some of the drivers in the top 10 and their crew chiefs thinking right now, oh, no, we trimmed out too much. We're not going to be good for the race tomorrow night?
You know what? I think they're thinking we trimmed out just like everybody else, but we survived. That's kind of, you know what I mean?
Yes,
when you watch it. 3 things I heard in practice that I've never heard, or heard in qualify, I've never heard.
Yeah.
Bubba Wallace, I bailed. We heard Kyle Larson say, no shot at the pole.
Yep.
And to paraphrase the great Ross Chastain, whoa! and that pretty much says what qualifying was all about. It was so confusing to watch these guys and to watch them struggle at this racetrack.
Brad, when you look at the cut line right now with 8 races to go before the playoffs start, are we at that point where drivers and teams are maybe getting desperate at what they consider an opportunity race tomorrow night?
Without question. I mean, this is a new racetrack. We've only run a few races on it. There's only a few people that we've seen have success. Everyone else that's around that cut line, it is, you've got to take advantage of people. You have to do whatever you need to do to get that race car across that finish line first. I don't care what you have to do.
And you notice the driver you don't see there, Kyle, Chase Elliott, way down there, and he knows this is one of his better shots left in the regular season.
Austin Cindric will be the first to go out to set the number. Find out if he can post a time that will win him the pole here at Atlanta.
So the top 10 go back out in order from slowest to fastest in the first round.
Austin ran a 31:40.65, and you wonder, right, why are we doing this? They're just going to go out and run the same time again, but they do have some adjustments, Steve, that may affect the balance of the car, the ability for them to hold the car wide open, to be tighter around the apron, to run a shorter distance.
Absolutely. Plus, what has you know, the first lap temperature-wise improved mechanically, like the hubs, you know, the gearbox. While those are all the same on all these cars, it's purchased. Do they all run the same gear oil? Do they run the same lubricants? The engine itself, is it more effective or efficient the second time? And for the, normally I would consider it mostly mechanical, but to Dale's point, Rick, you know, these have all been reasonably a handful to drive, so maybe now you've done it one time, you have a better idea what to expect.
Cindric within 2/100ths of a second of what he ran in the first round.
You're killing our theory, Rick. You're killing our theory. We thought they'd be everybody won't be within 2/100ths. Somebody's going to have a change.
31:48 for Austin Cindric. Just a little bit slower than what he ran in that first round.
I have become a fan, especially at speedway racing, of the 2 rounds of qualifying, Junior, because there are times, you know, the front row could be just 1,000 apart. You wonder if somebody didn't get a headwind or a tailwind. I mean, just such a small little thing. So this is almost like you have to be good enough to go out and do it twice.
Larson on the clock now.
I think we shouldn't assume that the cars are going to still drive well either. I know all 10 of these cars, you know, didn't have massive issues, but like we said before, Christopher Bell did spin out in the second round in the spring. It's a good lap right here by Larson.
Yeah, Cindric didn't improve, but Larson, at least for now, going in the right direction to put down a much better lap than he did. 31:46.4 was his first round lap. Oh, a little moment right there. Right as he's coming to the line, car got a little out of shape over the bump.
1/10 of a second, just under 1/10 of a second faster than he ran in his first round.
All right, I'm going to have to admit, Junior, I saw what you saw, but that's as far, or I mean, that's the straightaway. I mean, that was crazy looking.
When we rode around the track today with you, you know, we saw a lot of imperfections, a lot of problems, patches. It's not going to be this smooth, perfect repave. There's going to be some things they'll have to deal with. As you see, there's a little bump right here. Ooh. And it just skips the car sideways. Little correction. He's got it under control, but when you got a car on your outside or in your 2x2, that could be a big problem.
Here comes Todd Gilliland. He ran a 31:45 on his first round time. Now we're comparing to Larson for the pole.
Todd's doing a good job in his second year in Cup. He keeps learning every week. We've seen him have some good finishes. Young driver's got a lot of talent.
Looking like his best start this season for Gilliland. Hasn't had a lot of great qualifying performances, but this one second fast, 31:40 for Gilliland, so faster than what we saw out of that first round. He's certain to start at least 9th, which will be his best starting position of 2023. Here comes Kevin Harvick in that Hunt Brothers Pizza, number 4. Again, history made for Harvick back in 2001 when he was driving the number 29 for Richard Childress Racing and got his first win in his 3rd start in the Cup Series. But this will be his final start here at Atlanta.
Hard to believe, 36 starts here.
And he, you know, on the old racetrack, it was magic watching him get around here. He'd get that left front tire on that line you guys were talking about before, and he could just do stuff with his cars other people couldn't do.
It didn't matter if it's a truck, Xfinity car, Cup car. He looked the same every time he ran here, right around the bottom and flying.
So it's hard for me to think about 809 starts this weekend for Kevin Harvick, tying Darrell Waltrip as he goes to the top of the board. I just...
All right, P1 so far.
I mean, I know he's been around that long. It just doesn't seem it. Maybe it's crazy to say because it is an impressive number of starts.
And also an impressive number of wins. I mean, 60 wins for Kevin Harvick in his career.
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, whatever ballot, he's eligible.
A championship.
If he's not on the first ballot, then I'm going to have to scratch my head because everything he's put together in his career deserves it.
Yeah, definitely a Hall of Fame driver and a Hall of Fame career that he has put together. as now we see Eric Almirola. He was another name on the list of top 20 who's below the cut line that has a possibility. He could win his way into the playoffs.
Look at this. This is a pretty decent lap compared to Harvick right here. They were reasonably close, about 4 100ths different in the first round. It looks like Almirola's going to have a bigger pickup than Harvick did.
This looks like, to me, is going to be the fastest lap of the day so far.
31:26. It is the fastest lap of the day for Eric Almirola. And remember, the race will be run in the evening. Steve, we've already got a little bit of cloud cover now. The sun's starting to go down here. So is the track cooling off enough that we could start to see maybe a little more grip out of it?
Rick, I'm high-fiving you. You could be on my team. That is a good sales pitch. Go talk to the driver. Sun's going down, cooling off, more grip. No, but I've talked to a bunch of crew chiefs today in the garage here, really both garages, and they said just that they feel as these races start later in the day, you got to be right on the edge early, because when the track does cool and it gains that grip, you don't want all that drag or that slow, aero downforce built into your car. You want a car that when grip goes up mechanically, that car will cut through the air.
Here's Ty Gibbs hugging that double white line on the inside, trying to make it the shortest distance around this 1.5 miles.
It's really amazing how little steering wheel input is required at these speeds to go around this radius of a corner.
Third fastest for Ty Gibbs at a 31:37. And this will guarantee that Ford will not do the dominant performance that they did earlier in March when they had the top 8 in qualifying, because now Ty Gibbs guaranteed at least a 7th place spot. Here's Harrison Burton in the 21.
This is a driver that's had an up and down year, had an amazing run at Darlington. Really the highlight probably for the 21 this year. It was a 6th back at Darlington, but he ran inside the top 10 all day. I think that's the kind of day that this driver's looking for. And it doesn't have to be a win, but qualifying obviously is going to be at least in the top 10, probably top 5 or 6 looking at where this is tracking, and just kind of try to stay up there all day. Dice it up with those drivers that were mentioned earlier, the Joey Logano's, the guys we always see at the end of these speedway races. Continue to learn. Second, great lap by Harrison. We talk about the lack of practice and lack of testing, and I think that's what makes the race weekends more important. You just want to be in the mix. Feel what it's like at the front of these packs. Feel what it's like racing against these other champions like Harvick and Logano, and that kind of starts here in qualifying. So that leaves us 3, Rick, right? We have Blaney, Briscoe, and Logano.
Yep. So what that does is guarantee Harrison Burton with a career best starting position.
I tell you, I like it.
Here comes Logano. Again, he celebrated in March, getting to victory lane here.
And you wonder what that win has done for his year, because that's his only win on the season. Last year was a little bit of the same blueprint. No real talk about Joey Logano, and then we leave Phoenix, and guess who's the champ?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to look back and forget, as awful as that is to say, that he's the defending champ. And because they did it in kind of an off-the-radar type of season.
You never count out Joey Logano as he crosses the stripe now, and he will be second. He bumps Harrison Burton down to third. Almirola still with the impressive lap. 31:26 is what Blaney and Briscoe will be shooting at.
Chase Briscoe's looking for a highlight on the season. Had a little bit of a stretch there in the middle of the summer. Well, I say it's the summer. I'll call it late spring, right? Bristol, Martinsville, Talladega. He had a streak of 3 consecutive top 5s, but since then he's yet to put one inside the top 15. Trying to right the ship here. Got his new crew chief which is kind of his old crew chief from the Xfinity Series, right? We had Richard Boswell move over a couple weeks ago. I think it was Nashville was their first week together. So, and Greg Zipadelli, the director of competition at Stewart-Haas Racing, basically said, look, we know we aren't good enough. We know we have to give the drivers, you know, more. So when you look at a track like this where Fords are so dominant, it's a good way to kind of build on something, try to build a little momentum.
Hovering right around that 2 to 3 hundredths of a second slower than Almirola, which is going to slot him up here in the top 3, I believe. Sure enough, second fastest for Briscoe, and Blaney will be the last one that will have a shot at knocking Eric Almirola off the top.
I like Eric. He's going to sit right here and watch from inside the car.
He's going to leave his helmet on.
It's a good looking helmet.
It is. Eric had announced his retirement, was going to step away from the sport, spend more time with his family. Then as the year progressed, Eric and his family talked about it. They said, you know what? We like to see you out at the racetrack. We know that that's a place that you're very happy. So he came back this year. Talked to him at length in Chicago last weekend. And he says he's, you know, he didn't use the word frustrated, but they're questioning where that speed is. And he said it hasn't been any one thing. He said if it was one thing, we'd figure it out and we'd be able to run well. But he said it's just been one thing after another that they've had to kind of chase down to find the speed and the finishing positions. As we see Blaney still in the red, coming down a little bit. Is he going to get there? He does not. Almirola wins the pole in Atlanta. Get a thumbs up out of the driver. So the 39-year-old with his 5th career pole and just his 443rd start will bring the